What would you do if you saw a young girl being dragged away, screaming for help, and everyone else just looked the other way? Well, one single dad didn't think twice. He punched first, asked questions later, and that one moment changed all of their lives forever. But before I share this heart-stopping story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, so you never miss stories that remind us of the power of courage and kindness. It was one of those evenings that carried the weight of exhaustion. Daniel Hayes, a single father in his mid-30s, had just finished another long shift at the auto shop. His hands were stained with grease, his body aching, but the thought of getting home to his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was what kept him going. Life hadn't been kind to him. His wife passed away 5 years ago, leaving him to navigate the storm of grief while raising a child alone. But despite the hardships, Daniel found joy in the little moments. Lily's laughter when she tried to help him cook, her stubborn insistence on reading him bedtime stories instead of the other way around, and the quiet reassurance that somehow, they were going to be okay. That night, Daniel parked his old Chevy pickup near the convenience store at the corner of Oak and Main. Lily had begged for her favorite chocolate milk before bed, and though he was tired, he couldn't say no. He left the truck idling as Lily sat in the back humming softly to herself, the radio playing a tune too quiet to make out. Daniel stepped inside the store, grabbed the carton, and walked back out. But what he saw as he approached his truck made his heart slam against his ribs. Across the dimly lit parking lot, near the alley, a young girl, no older than 15, was being dragged by a man twice her size. She was kicking, screaming, clawing at his arm, her cries piercing the night. People nearby turned their heads, froze for a moment, and then quickly looked away. Some even walked faster, pretending they hadn't seen anything. Daniel froze, just for a second, his mind torn between shock and fury. The girl screamed again, "Help me. Please," and that was it. He didn't think about who the man was, what he might do, or whether he should call the police first. His instincts took over. He bolted across the parking lot, his boots pounding against the pavement, his chest burning with adrenaline. The man turned his head just as Daniel reached them, his grip still tight on the girl's wrist. Without a word, Daniel's fist connected with the man's jaw, a sharp crack echoing in the still night. The man stumbled backward, cursing, releasing the girl as he staggered. She fell to the ground, scrambling away, her sobs turning into ragged gasps. Daniel positioned himself between her and the stranger, his fists raised, his breath heavy. "You lay one more hand on her, and you'll regret it," Daniel growled, his voice low and steady despite the rage boiling inside him. The man sneered, wiping blood from his lip. "You don't know what you're getting into," he spat. "She's mine." That one sentence made Daniel's blood run cold. The sheer audacity of the man claiming ownership over another human being ignited a fire he hadn't felt in years. He stepped closer, his voice trembling with fury. "She doesn't belong to anyone. Now get lost before I make sure you can't stand." For a tense moment, the man looked like he might lunge, but something in Daniel's eyes, or maybe the sound of approaching footsteps as other bystanders finally started paying attention, made him falter. He muttered something under his breath, then staggered away into the shadows of the alley, disappearing as quickly as he had come. Daniel's chest heaved as he turned back to the girl, who was curled against the wall, hugging her knees, tears streaking her face. She looked terrified, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Daniel crouched down slowly, keeping his distance so she wouldn't feel threatened. "Hey," he said gently, his voice softer now. "You're safe. He's gone. I won't let anyone hurt you." The girl sniffled, her eyes darting nervously around. Thank you. I didn't know what to do." Daniel offered a small smile, trying to put her at ease. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just glad I got here in time. What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Emily." Daniel nodded. "Emily. That's a beautiful name. Listen, Emily, I have my daughter in the truck right over there. You can come sit with us until we figure out what to do next. You'll be safe, I promise. Emily glanced at the truck, where Lily was pressing her little hands against the glass, her eyes wide with curiosity and concern. Something in that sight seemed to ease Emily's fear. Slowly, she nodded, and Daniel helped her to her feet. They walked together to the truck, and when Lily saw Emily, she immediately unlocked the door and leaned forward. Daddy, is she okay? What happened? Daniel ruffled Lily's hair. She's been through something bad, sweetheart. But we're going to help her, okay? Lily's big brown eyes softened as she looked at Emily. Hi. I'm Lily. Do you like chocolate milk? We have some. For the first time since Daniel saw her, Emily's lips twitched into the faintest smile. She climbed into the truck beside Lily, who immediately handed her the carton of chocolate milk Daniel had just bought. Emily held it in her hands like it was the most precious gift in the world. Daniel started the truck and pulled out of the lot, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't just drop Emily off somewhere and pretend this never happened. She was someone's daughter, someone's child, and clearly, she needed help. As they drove, Emily slowly began to talk, her voice quiet and halting. She explained that the man who tried to drag her away was someone who had been following her for weeks. She didn't know why, she thought maybe he was part of a group involved in something dangerous, but she couldn't be sure. She lived in a foster home, one that she described as cold and neglectful, and she often snuck out to escape the loneliness. Tonight, she had been walking home from a friend's place when he grabbed her. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he listened. He could feel the fear radiating from her, but also the deep sadness of a child who had grown up without love. His heart ached, remembering how lost he had felt after his wife's death, how close he came to breaking under the weight of loneliness. But he had Lily. She had saved him in more ways than one. And now, looking at Emily, Daniel felt that same protective instinct stirring inside him again. When they reached Daniel's small house on the edge of town, he helped Emily inside. The place wasn't much. Just a modest two-bedroom home with creaky floors and mismatched furniture, but it was warm, safe, and filled with the scent of the cookies Lily had baked the day before. Emily sat at the kitchen table, her shoulders hunched, her eyes scanning the room nervously. Daniel set a cup of tea in front of her and sat across from her. Emily, you don't have to tell me everything right now, he said gently. But I need to know if you have someone I can call. A family member? Someone who cares about you? Emily shook her head quickly, tears welling in her eyes again. No one. There's no one. Daniel's chest tightened. He reached across the table, not touching her, just letting his hand rest on the wood between them. Then you're not alone anymore. You have me. And you have Lily. Lily, who had been listening quietly, slipped off her chair and went around the table to hug Emily. At first, Emily stiffened, but then she melted into the embrace, sobbing softly against Lily's shoulder. Daniel watched, his throat thick with emotion. He had stepped in without thinking, ready to fight for a stranger, but now he realized this moment was about much more than a single act of bravery. Emily needed more than a rescue, she needed a place to belong, someone to believe in her, someone to fight for her not just once but every day. And as Daniel sat there, watching his daughter comfort this broken girl, he realized he was being given a choice. He could turn this over to the authorities, let Emily disappear into a system that had already failed her, or he could open his heart and his home to her, even if it meant more challenges, more responsibilities, more sacrifices. For a man who had already lost so much, it was terrifying. But it also felt right. That night, after Emily finally fell asleep in Lily's bed, Daniel stood in the doorway watching over the two girls. Lily's small arm was draped protectively across Emily's shoulders, as if she already considered her a sister. Daniel exhaled slowly, his decision made. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing with certainty: he had punched first, asked questions later, and somehow, that single choice had just changed all of their lives forever. The next morning, Emily's nightmare wasn't over. The man returned, lurking near the house. Daniel, fueled by both fear and love, called the police while standing guard outside. When the man tried to force his way in, Daniel fought back fiercely, buying enough time until sirens pierced the air. The man was arrested, and for the first time, Emily felt truly safe. In court, Daniel testified for her, vowing she was no longer alone. Emily was given the choice to stay with Daniel and Lily, and through tears, she whispered, "I've finally found my family."